Good afternoon, everybody. It is 2 o'clock and it is time for the masterclass. Let me know if you can't hear me. I'll start sharing my screen in a moment. For this format, we will have a basic run through and then we'll do question and answers at the end. So if you have any questions regarding any of the issues that I cover today, please make a note and come back to them towards the end. Once I've gone through everything, I'll ask you guys if there's any questions. So looks like my microphone's working. Everything good? Anybody hear me? Anybody not hear me? All good? Excellent. Thanks, Corey. So if you don't know me, my name is Sam. I'm on the support team. I also do the Wednesday Q&A, so you're probably fed up of me. If you did the Planix training, you also got fed up with this voice. Back with you for this one. So this webinar is, this masterclass is most common tickets and issues that we come across, and the ones that we found that would probably be most useful for you to know about. So like I mentioned, questions at the end if you wouldn't mind, and otherwise I will just plod on with everything. You should be able to see my screen. I've got a bunch of windows here open, and so we'll get started. Let me just check a few things here. So yeah, we've got a few people here. Excellent. All right, so let's get on to the first topic here. So I have a document I'm going to be working off. So just bear with me while I reference it in certain times. It's just that I know exactly what's next. Okay, so anybody who is new or is not new, this is a good way to introduce what you will see, what happens basically when you submitted your first iGUIDE. So you will use Survey to capture the iGUIDE. Then you will use Stitch to align everything and make sure the data is correct, do any adjustments you need to the panoramas visually, the placement, the laser data, make sure the laser data lines up, and you'll have something that ends up like this. You will then export this and then send this into us via the Create a New iGUIDE page on the portal. Once that's been done and it's accepted, what will happen basically is the drafting team will see that it's your very first iGUIDE that you've completed. They will flag this, and once they have completed drafting, they will basically give us in support a summary of what you did well, what needs improving, and where basically a few tips and tricks for the future. Say, hey, an extra panorama here would have been useful. You didn't take scans of like open closets, for example. That's an important one. We'll get into that a bit later. And so you'll expect to see a feedback notification from us with an extra few tips and tricks. If your iGUIDE is not submitted correctly, as in there's a lot of data misaligned, like say, for example, like this on screen here, I'm just going to mess this all up. Say your iGUIDE looks a little bit like this, then that will be refused. It needs to be nice and neat and tidy and look exactly how we expect it to. So they'll be refused, and then typically if you're having any difficulties, the support team will advise you, maybe give you a few screenshots of, hey, we've aligned it for you, but we want you to go in and realign this so it looks like this. Basically just so that you have a visual of what we're expecting. So that's basically, that's what happens once you've submitted an iGUIDE. The next subject, documenting all spaces, which leads onto the panels for closets, etc. So we do see, and a lot recently actually, of missing spaces that are quite important spaces for an iGUIDE. People will say to us, hey, can you add it in? It's the same as the above. But visually, it may look exactly the same as the above, but in reality, it may be completely different. So generally, no, we cannot add that in. It must be documented. We must have laser data like so to add those spaces in. So if you do manage to miss a space while you're on site, let's, for example, say that I forgot to shoot this bathroom here, and say let's take these 2 scans away. This is a missing space now on screen. So we can see from the panorama at the top here that there is a door, and there's a door here. Basically, this door and this door would be classed as missing space. We don't know what's behind there, and so we won't draft it in. We will alert you and say, hi, it appears that there are 2 missing spaces in this house. Would you like to go back and collect them, or would you like to process the iGUIDE as is? Which means that you'll get everything except those spaces. And that's fine. We can do that. We can publish it without, but typically we can do 2 things for you. We can publish the iGUIDE as is, or we can hold the iGUIDE and wait for you to update us later on with the data. It's a pretty simple process. You only need to go in and capture those extra panos. So typically it's really good to get 1 overlapping pano when you go back. So like this one, for example, here, so that we can see into the bathroom as well as the rest of the house, so that we have something to align to. And then come in and take one in the bathroom, so that we have these 2 scans here to align everything. So you've got the bathroom, you can see into the hallway, and you've got this from the hallway into the bathroom. What you would do here is typically it sounds silly, but you'd have just this on screen once you've done that. You've got these 2 panoramas for your whole project. One of them does need to be set as the initial pano, just for processor's sake. And what you would do is export this. Now, 2 panoramas tends to be small enough that you can email this file to us. As long as it's below 20 megabytes, our system won't drop it. So you've got up to 20 megabytes and you can email that in. If it's above 20 megabytes, and this is the same for pano updates, if somebody's done renovations or you've got a big area that was missed, or you're adding data later on, it's like a multi-floor, multi-project property. Basically, what you need to do is upload it to Dropbox. Let's pull up a Dropbox here, for example. In fact, Dropbox you have to log into, so let's do WeTransfer. WeTransfer is really the simplest one I've come across. You don't need to log on, you just select agree. You select and upload a file. So let's say here, I want to go to my downloads, and I've got whole things here, a bunch of stuff in my downloads, but this is, where is the file? This one here, main floor. And let's just quickly export this, ignore. So that's exported. Imagine you just exported these 2 panos. We'll go into WeTransfer. Let's go back up. We'll go into the export folder. We'll select this. And as you can see, this is 85 megabytes. We click open. What you want to do at this point is click on the 3 dots at the bottom left-hand side here, get a transfer link, click on get link, and it'll start transferring. This is a public link. This is what we need for the drafting team and support team. Unfortunately, you can't email this to us, because what will happen, let me just cancel this. Reload site, yeah, that's fine. If you email it to us, it's only accessible from that email address. So the drafting team, if you sent it to support, does not have access. And if you sent it to drafting team, support does not have access. And typically, Wayne support will check the file for the drafting team to make sure that everything's good before we go ahead and draft it. So sending us the link is important. Now, there's multiple ways of doing this. There's Google Drive, Dropbox, WeTransfer, OneDrive. There's always an option to set the link that you send to us as public. And that's very important to do, so that everybody can fit that in. Going on to some other missing data and how to avoid this. Typically, we do see missing panos from closets. And on an exterior wall, that becomes a problem. Let's try to undo this here. There we go. So say, for example, that this is actually a closet, not a bathroom. On an exterior wall, as you can see, there's no depth data. We can't see how deep that closet actually is, which is a problem. We then can't draft that in. So we'll give you an interior wall, interior wall here, and then we won't draft it in. And also, we won't notify you of a missing closet. There's a certain number of things that we don't notify you of. Hey, you missed a closet. We're going to publish the iGUIDE as is anyway, so that you're not held up. But if there's a major room missing, so things like a primary bedroom, a dining room, a kitchen, things like that have been missed that we can see from the actual panos, and say this was a room here that was missed. We can see a lot of the data in here. But say, for example, there wasn't enough data in this room to draft it, like so, we could see it, but we don't have any panoramas in that room. This point, we will let you know. Hey, there's a missing room, there's a missing space. This is more obvious in rooms with definitive hallways and less open plan than this property. And we will contact you at that point. There's a big room missing. We can see into it, but there's not enough data to draft it. Unfortunately, you'll need to return and collect that data, or we'll publish it as is. And that's just how it is, unfortunately, for that state. Now, to help you with this, I've got a survey for the Planix system on the right-hand side here. It's the same with the IMS5, it's just a different way of accessing it. So I'm going to open this up here, and you can see on this property that you have these basically overlapping white zones here and some black areas. So this is actually your, let's have a look here, is your coverage opacity, which you can change in the settings. I believe you can also just simply disable this on the IMS5. So you don't have an opacity slider, but you can show or hide it. I'm going to turn the opacity right up for this so I can show you. And then go back to survey. And as you can see, there's a stark difference, and there's different regions of color too. So I'm just going to select Pano, move it out of the way, and so that we can show you this here. I'm going to throw that over there. So as you can see, there are certain zones here that may be missing some data. The whiter the area is, the better coverage you have of that zone. This is LiDAR data only. This isn't anything but LiDAR data. If we zoom in to the bathroom, there's only 2 panos that can see into the bathroom, so it's kind of gray, but at least we know we've got it. If, for example, this window gives a good example. You can see here, if this was a room, we wouldn't have enough data to draft it. There's just not enough. You can see that there's not a filled in space. So it needs to look like this. The black spaces in the center here are just the walls. There's nothing we can do about that. Either walls or cabinets, and I know for just experience, this is a refrigerator here, so that wouldn't be expected to be filled in. So solid objects within a home will be black, like so. So you can check your coverage using survey before you leave as well. Ignore things like this. This is a mirror, so it's throwing the laser data off. This is a window, so it's going through. Same for anywhere where it looks like it's shooting beams outside of the house. These are all just windows or reflections of the laser data. So give me 1 second, I'm just going to see where I'm up to. So we've dealt with what happens when you submit your iGUIDE, documenting all spaces and checking the areas on survey. Panos for closets. I'll quickly go back over that one. At the end of the day, internal closets, we can probably draft in because we have all the internal surrounding data of that closet. It is still advantageous to document those closets because they may be a different depth than we actually think they are. They could be shallower than anticipated. There could be, plumbing, ductwork, or electrical work in between that closet and the room. And so the closet may be may have a different depth than we expect. So documenting all closets is a must. Along with closets, you've got pantries and kitchens, you've got understairs storage rooms, you've got one that people don't think of is bathrooms. When you have a tub with a shower curtain, you need to pull the shower curtain back so that we know exactly how deep that bathroom goes to with the shower tub combination thing. So yeah, that's all the things that you need to cover in a household. So we get tickets regarding these, and we find that we're letting people know quite often about these issues, and that's why we decided to cover that today. So the next object we're going on to is, I'll quickly go back over which rooms we do not notify you of. And it tends to be small things like closets, pantries, anything on the exterior that's classed as a minor room, like a smaller room, we won't notify you of. But on this subject, we often get questions about, hey, why can't I see the measurements of the foyer? Why can't I see the closet measurements? And why can't I see hallway lengths and widths? So major rooms are listed. It says in iGUIDEs over here, let me just pull it up. So the training iGUIDE. I have a different account logged in here. Sorry, 1 second. Just going to go to our website. Where are the examples? Just give me 1 second. Samples gallery, I completely missed it. So let's go to Frying Pan Road here. We'll open this up. So as you can see, everything has a label here, but in the details section, only major rooms are listed. Some rooms may be excluded, etc., etc. And as you can see here, the foyer is showing up. Typically it wouldn't, but we've turned it on this one. And you can do this simply yourself by going to the edit default view page. You click on the little pencil once you go to the edit screen next to the label name, and you can enable the measurements. So this is something you can do yourself. Let me show you how to do that on screen. Give me 1 second. For those of you that don't know, a lot of you will know how to do this. It's something that is done often. Just pulling a window over here. So here's my training iGUIDE. A bunch of things changed on here. So we go to the edit default view and we scroll down. We can actually select the foyer and make sure that it's ticked here. Same for the hallway. We can enable any measurement if there's a label, and it will be included in the details tab. So just because it's not in the details doesn't mean that it's not included in the final measurement data. White areas, however, are excluded areas. So for example, the garage and the storage are excluded for whatever purposes, whatever reasons. White on the floor plan is excluded, and anything that is colored in is included. Okay, while I'm on Stitch, I'm going to cover this one. Where have my things gone? There, the survey. So if you have a certain zone that you wish to add a note for and say, please exclude this, please include this, or leave a bit of information for the drafting team, you can add a note. So in the top corner of Stitch itself, there's an add note button, a piece of paper with a pencil on. You simply double click on screen. Type your note in, and it'll come up on screen. You can move this around once selected. So this is one way of leaving it on screen itself. Or if you click on the project name, you can add a comment to the drafting team here. Please include all areas of the basement, and they'll include it for you. Or vice versa. Please exclude all the basement, whichever your preference is on this certain property, however your realtor wishes to present it. We can do that by just adding a note. It can be changed later on. It's just easier if you include it in here because you don't have to make any changes, and then we can ensure that the iGUIDE is ready to go as soon as it's published. It just saves a little bit of time on both sides. Give me 1 second. Okay, this is a good one. So not being able to add somebody as an editor to an iGUIDE. So if I go to an iGUIDE here, and we just select a random one, what do we have? Let's go with this one. We have people here. To add somebody as an editor, typically you need to go into the people section, click on edit, type in the editor's email address or name. So let's go with a random name. No matching users found for Patricia Pipe. This is because they don't exist in the system. Your editors also have to sign up for an account on the portal, not just yourself. So to become an editor, I'm going to open it in an incognito window here. All you would do is go to the sign up section down here, put all your details in, sign up, and you can become an editor. You're signed up on our portal. This doesn't necessarily mean that you can create iGUIDEs. This just means that you have a contact information in the portal, and so you can be set as an editor. Once you've created this and somebody has set you as an editor, you can then go to the My iGUIDEs page, and you will see which properties you have access to edit. And that way you can make changes, etc. Just working off of that one as well, I have a note about sub-accounts. So while I'm in here, I'm going to go into the sub-accounts part. If you click on dashboard, you can see that there's 2 sub-accounts. This could be your photographers. This could be people you want to be editors. These are people that are submitting iGUIDEs online. When your sub-account creates an iGUIDE, you are still the manager, you're the owner, and you're the billable, and the person basically pays all the bills. So you might be in the office arranging everything, and you have multiple photographers out with multiple systems. You want them to arrange the stitch data and upload in the evening. That can be done by just setting up a sub-account. To do that, you click on create a new sub-account, enter the first name, enter the last name, and enter their email address. Now, if they're already on the portal and they already have an account set up that you've been using to set them as an editor, this will ask you, do you want this person already exists? Are you sure you want to invite them? You just say yes. Then they would go to their email, accept the invite, and they will become a sub-account of your system. So any iGUIDE that they submit, they will automatically be an editor, but you will always be the manager. So say, for example, this person that's working for you submits a whole bunch of iGUIDEs, but then you part ways for whatever reason. You can remove them from here, and any iGUIDE they created under you, they will no longer have access to. So they'll auto remove those sub-accounts as editors. You're always in control at that point. So that's just a useful tip that we found people weren't utilizing sub-accounts too much. And then I'll go on to a bit more of a controversial issue. As built versus built as floor plans. So sometimes we'll get people say, hey, these measurements don't match the builder's floor plans. Nope, we're measuring, this is how it was built, not just how it was planned. So a lot of things can change during building. People find that the wall thickness wasn't enough for the pipes that they have. Insulation wouldn't fit in. They needed to extend it or use a different type of something else. Products or materials weren't available, so they had to substitute it. Building a house is a manual project. It's not done by machines, obviously. So until it is, then we might get perfect plans versus final results. The iGuides give you your final result. And I have a bit of information here as well, saying that just regarding similar units. So say you have an apartment building that has just been built, brand new building, and there are multiple units that when you walk into, they're the exact mirror of the one next door or the one across the hallway, but the measurements come in different. That's the same issue. They may look the same on the inside, but when you walk into a room, you can't just, automatically figure out the dimensions. That's why we use the system. So basically, there are always going to be slight differences. And this could add up to 10 square foot. It could add up to 15 square foot. And by eye, you wouldn't know the difference. It will look exactly the same. So we've had a couple of them recently saying, hey, these units are exactly the same. They're even above each other, but the measurements came in differently. We're using the laser data the same for both apartments. It's just differences between each one. So that comes up often enough that I believe we felt like we needed to mention that one. If you want to know more about why iGUIDE numbers differ from the builder's floor plan, there is a good knowledge base article. And I'll post that at the end of the conversation in the chat. There's a couple of other things to mention. I feel like I'm blasting through these. It's going to be a pretty quick masterclass. Documenting stairs. So this is one that comes up relatively often, and it also helps with navigation of the iGUIDE itself for your clients and their customers. So people buying the house. We sometimes find that people don't take a pano at the bottom and then at the top of the staircase. This is really important for one, the drafting team to know exactly how the upstairs is oriented compared to the downstairs, and two, for like a nice kind of walk-through experience. So you get to the bottom of the stairs, you click on the stairgate and it takes you to the top of the stairs, and then you can look down where you came from for reference point. It's just a nice way to have a transition, and it's very important for drafting so that we get the orientation of the floors correctly above each other. That's just a quick note. And low ceiling height. So occasionally you'll have a sloped ceiling roof. Maybe it's the second floor. There's a lot of houses, my house is one actually, that have a sloped ceiling on the upper floor. Anything below 5 foot is classed as excluded, with the current system being used, the measurement system we're using. Anything below 5 foot is excluded, and that will be shown to you, as I mentioned before, it'll be white. So it'll be excluded space. Now, this isn't stuck in stone. If you wish to include those spaces, say that the measurement standards are different in your area, that's fine. We can remove that. We'll add a note to our draft software. We've got a ticket for it saying that the operator or the realtor has requested that these areas be included. It's not definitive, so any changes you want made for included or excluded spaces, depending on your area, as long as it's meeting those standards, we can do that for you. And we, in those cases, we do kind of expect that you know the ins and outs. We're not necessarily going to check up. If you say that, hey, in my area, anything under 5 foot with a sloped roof is still included, we're just going to take your word for it and do that. But it's going to be noted, so if you get into trouble, can't be blamed on us. So I think I may have covered all of my options right now. I got through that a lot faster than I thought I would. So if you have any questions, anybody, there's a Q&A panel within Zoom. Feel free to ask questions in there. If you have any comments or anything else, you can add general chit chat in the chat section, and then we can do any questions in the Q&A area. While everybody's typing questions on those subjects, I will go through a couple of other things while I'm here. So another common issue that we find, so the new Planix system does have the auto align feature, the auto snap. You can make sure that that is set to on here. You want this slid to the right. This is just an emulator, so it's not always got the correct settings. We'll change that back down and save it. It does have an auto align feature. So what we can do is, Julia has a question there. I'll quickly go through this and then I'll answer your question, Julia. But if anybody else does have any questions, please feel free to post them. And if I can continue to speak, I will. So quickly finish this off. The Radix system, sorry, the Planix system depends on you having a line of sight of your last location. This is something I go through quite often on my Wednesday webinars. And it's something that is also mentioned in the training. If you can see the last location where you took a scan, so can the system. That means it's going to get this overlapping data here. Let's go back to this. This overlapping data that you can see here, and it will auto align it because it can see where it's going. If it can't see common data, it can't snap it. So this is not a very complex house. This is pretty open, straightforward. With a more closed home, you may need to take more scans than you anticipate, just so that you can auto align that data. Line of sight to your last location is the easiest way to know that it's going to snap. Just make sure you can see within a certain distance where you last took a panorama and continue going on. And that will I don't know, 8 times out of 10 allow the data to snap automatically. I don't know the stats. Julia has asked, do you have to empty closets to scan them? No, you don't. But what is helpful is with a closet, say you've got a lot of clothes hanging up, ask your realtor, or if the clients are still in the home and just staying out your way, you can check down and say, hey, is it okay? Ask permission to move things. What we would like, if possible, is if it's got a bunch of clothes hung up and it's blocking the wall, just see if you can create a partition in those so that the laser can hit the back of the wall. If not, at least you've opened it, and we can use triangulation from the ceiling of the closet, and we can do the best we can with that. But ideally, parting the clothes so that there's even just an inch of space so that the laser can hit the back wall. That's all that's required, really. Are there any other questions? I don't see anything. The width, typically, if you can get that in too, that would be wonderful. Especially on an exterior wall, like I was saying earlier. And this width is also important. You can see here. There's a closet that this operator actually missed, this example I'm using. There's a closet here, and you can see they didn't document it. But the thing is, we know this is an exterior wall. We know this is an exterior wall. So we can bring this in and match it up to here. So that line that's being shown here is roughly where that closet's wall would be. So it'd be on a slant, maybe it's not, but we wouldn't 100% know without opening the closet and taking a pano inside. Especially if this data didn't exist, you can see now that there's no way that we can know the depth of the closet. On an edge of a house like this, we can kind of say, hey, well, I guess that maybe it's here, but we could never know how far back it goes. Houses are built really weird. I've seen some strange stuff where you'd be like, oh, this makes logical sense that it goes all the way to here, when actually it doesn't. So width would be helpful, especially on exterior walls. Interior walls, because we have the interior wall data, the width shouldn't make too much of a difference. The depth is important. We can generally get widths, but how deep they are is more difficult, because they're squished in by other walls on the inside of the house. The more data you can get at the end of the day, the better your results are going to be, the more reliable. So there's a question from Elizabeth here. Doing some things with tags, awesome. Often this pops up. Choose which panoramas this tag will be visible from by double-clicking panoramas on the floor plan. Green indicates the tag is visible in the panorama, but when I double-click on other panos, nothing seems to happen. Should we take a look? We will take a look. Which one is my right window? This one. Let's go to tags. I'm going to clear some of these up. Let's just delete them all. In fact, no, let's leave that. The best tag. So this one is in the middle of the room. We don't need chat black right now. So where are you seeing when it says this tag will be visible from double clicking? Is it when you create the tag? Let's save this and make a new tag. Let's just do one on the wall here. So if I could double click this one, this tag is disabled. So you see how it's gone red? So when I've selected this tag selected here, you see how it changes? These panos, any other panos can't see it. If they can't see this tag, there's no line of sight to the tag. Whereas this one has line of sight from multiple locations. So we can use this for an example. So I can disable the tag from this one, and this one. And when, if you look at these now, the tag doesn't come up. It only comes up in this one here. So you can limit which panos are seeing the tag from. Once you've double clicked on them, it turns red. And you can see here, there's different tags and different enabled panoramas. So does anybody have questions about the items I went through at the start? Is everybody clear on sub-accounts, on low ceiling height? I'll just quickly run through everything I went through. Submitting your first iGUIDE, documenting all spaces, pano and floor plan updates. Is there any confusion there? Not able to add an editor, major versus minor rooms, which room measurements are and are not hidden, and which missing rooms you will be notified of. Any questions regarding those? How to leave notes, built as floor plans versus builders floor plans, utilizing sub-accounts and primary contact roles. Right, so this is something I think I skipped over a little bit. So the primary contact role for people is something that can be used for office staff, basically. So if there's a missing space of an iGUIDE, the drafting team will not contact the primary contact. The drafting team will contact the photographer because they assume that that's the person that's going to go and recapture that space. So the primary contact is only used for reports, analytics, when an iGUIDE is about to expire. That's the primary contact's role. So it's split up a little bit. If you want to know more information on primary contacts, I can let you know. But in general, it's those 3 items. As well as that, we talked about documenting stairs, and we did low ceiling height. Yeah, Elizabeth, if you're having issues, please open a support ticket and we can go through it. Maybe we can do a screen sharing with you and go through that live. Was there any other questions regarding these subjects I covered today? What I am going to do is quickly go through support desk. I close a bunch of things here. I've got so much open. I also wanted to cover creating a ticket on the portal, as this is something that most people use actually. A lot of people don't know, they tend to use email. But on our support desk, support.youriGUIDE.com, once you're logged in, you can create a ticket on the portal, which is also where our solutions are. Many solutions on the portal here, and this is how you create a ticket. So you put your email address in, which should be pre-filled, put your name in, what you need help with. If you select the right item here, it will help it get prioritized. And it'll help us give a general idea of what you need assistance on. So we'll know exactly based off of, if you select billing, we'll know that generally the billing team will be CC'd in this. We'll take the ticket and wait for the billing team to get back to us on this with an answer, and then we'll reply to you. A quick summary, generally including the URL of the iGUIDE that you're mentioning is key. If you're not specifically mentioning an iGUIDE, a specific iGUIDE, you can leave this blank. But if you're having issues, then enter your web browser, your operating system, and your version. And then if you're having issues with a camera system, so you're having problems with the IMS5, please do enter your camera serial number so we can see which version and what model you've got. The current system firmware version, so that's the firmware of the IMS5 or the firmware of the Planix. And then if you're using the Planix, what your Theta firmware version currently is. Typically, you want to know these because if you're out of date, that will be one of our first suggestions into fixing your problem, is upgrade to the most recent version of these. Once you've entered everything and you've described your issue, you can add pictures here, you can add links, you can do whatever you want. You can attach a file up to 20 megabytes, submit that, and that's it into the system. Then you can go to your ticket to the top here. I don't have any tickets open right now. Open or pending, all tickets. So I haven't created any. I created this new account today. So I've got no tickets. But you can see resolved and closed tickets as well. So that if an issue is resolved for you, you can go back into here and see what the resolution was. Instead of searching through your email, you can be like, I know support sent me that resolution. They sent me a knowledge base article, but I don't remember which one it was. You can come in here and have a look for that ticket. For solutions, over here, we have a bunch of solutions. So defending iGUIDE measurements is the one I was referring to earlier. This is the one, here we go. Why do iGUIDE numbers differ from tax records? Why do iGUIDE numbers differ from builders' floor plans? We do have an article on this. This comes up relatively often. This is a very used knowledge-based article. We can't see on the screen, but this has one of the highest views because it's a very convenient, very handy article. I'll paste that in the chat for you guys, just in case you ever want to bookmark that and use it. If your realtor is questioning something, say, hey, why doesn't this match? Why doesn't this match? Why is it different? Why does the sum of the areas, all listed rooms, not add up to the total square footage? That's because foyers, closets, pantries, hallways, aren't in the dimensions section for them to add in. What they cannot also enable is the interior wall footprint, which is included. We don't give those dimensions. It's not included with the dimension summary, so it'll never add up. Our system automatically adds them in for you, and gives you the totals. So that's a really good knowledge base article. And there's plenty on here. There's 55 regarding the portal. There's 13 regarding the camera and survey app alone. Regarding floor plan square footage, there's 9. And there's 9 regarding Stitch. So that's a lot of knowledge base articles in here that if you find yourself stuck on something on the like after hours, for example, or you're in a different time zone and you're working and you get stuck, there's some great ones in here. There's an IMS5 on-site resolution flowchart here with survey as well. This is relatively applicable to the Planix system, but not quite. There's a few steps that you wouldn't go through. So things like this is very handy. Does anybody have any questions regarding what we went through? Let's have a look at the list I went through here. We can delete this so you can see it easier. There we go. So, any questions regarding these at all? I guess not right now. So thank you very much for coming along. I know this was mostly me just talking about at you, but that's what masterclasses are. It's just learning how to avoid the most common issues. So hopefully this has helped you a little bit. Thanks everyone for coming. I don't see any more questions. So I think that will do for today. I see people are leaving, so thanks very much.